Hello everyone, and good morning as it is for me. You're joining me in quite a nice morning to be out doing some woodland photography, and I'm all set up here for a scene behind me which I'll talk about in just a second. But the light is changing all the time for this scene. So I'm just grabbing another image there as it looks quite nice at the moment. It's really something I need to keep my eyes on all the time because the scene is looking dramatically different over every few minutes that I'm here. So the first thing that drew me to this scene as I went past in the morning is that the woodland in the distance was really dark, but the trees in front of me here were catching some nice morning light. And the scene looked quite good. But my only slight concern is that by the time I got set up and the sun became a little bit brighter, it was still early in the morning, there was quite a lot of patchy light. There was some of the surrounding trees were casting shadows onto my main subjects. At the moment you can see the light is a bit more even, so there's not so much going on in terms of shadows being cast onto the actual trees. Now the light is actually quite nice again just now. So I'm going to grab another image while it looks quite nice, and I'm quite pleased with that. So I've got a variety of images here captured in different lighting conditions. The ones I captured early on looked quite dramatic with the different light that was going on in the scene, but I'm just slightly concerned about the shadows, and it's something I can work on in post-production. But I really do need to see the final result before I know for sure if I'll be happy with it. But it certainly looked nice to my eye as I was standing here. But the good thing is, by being patient and hanging around, I'm able to capture the scene in different lighting conditions at the moment. So the light is nice, but I can actually see more of the background at the moment, although it's still a bit dark. Earlier in the morning the background was much darker than it is now. But the scene is looking quite nice, so I'm going to grab my final shot from this spot here, and it does look quite good. Light is always very important when you're doing woodland photography. You need to be careful of where your scene is being lit from and how the light actually looks in the scene, but I'll talk you through what I was actually seeing in this one. So this main subject in front of me here, this tree, has obviously got a really nice shape, and there's a little story going on just down from it and to the right. You can see a part of a tree trunk left in the ground, and then the fallen over tree to the right. I believe it's quite a large silver birch. So there's a little bit of story going on there, and I don't want to include the whole fallen tree as it wouldn't work in the composition. Then beyond that, it was all about light and layers when I first arrived. The light was hitting all of those trees and making them stand out against the really dark background. And if I just move around the scene here, you can see how positioning is key, and you've got so many different options of where you could potentially take the shot from. But I've taken the shot roughly from about this angle. You'll see it in the final image. And you can see quite a nice bright silver birch trunk coming through the gap of these trees just in front of me here. And it's all about different patterns, different layers, and of course light and shadow as well. So I'll show you what I think is the best image once I've got them edited, and hopefully you'll like it. But for now I'm going to move on and do some more exploring and see what else I can find on this nice morning. always hear it talked about that woodland photography is difficult due to the chaotic nature of woodlands. You can get trees that are very close together, so many branches twisting and turning, crisscrossing, and there's just so much going on. It can be difficult to isolate little sections of the woodland or isolate effective compositions. I've got a very challenging scene in front of me here, but it's not quite for those reasons. It's challenging for different reasons. I do have some space between trees in this area, and it's quite a nice area that I'm in. But the challenge I've got is just getting a nice composition for a number of reasons. One is the direction of light. So I can see a number of interesting compositions, but they may not work at this moment due to the direction of light. I would need the light to be coming in a different direction for them to look their best. The other thing is that the ground is on quite a slope. So although I will have my camera perfectly level, it could make some images look like I've had the camera at an angle. So if I take in a wider area here, you're going to see quite a significant slope on the floor of the woodland, and it may look like I've just made a mistake when I'm taking the image, but that wouldn't be the case. So to try and find a scene where the lighting works and the slope of the land isn't too much of an issue has been quite challenging. You can see there's a lot of potential here. There's lots of things catching my eye. I could spend hours here, to be honest, in this little section, but what I'm photographing at the moment is this scene behind me. Now, it works, in my opinion, for a number of reasons. One is the direction of the lighting. It's coming from the left, coming in this direction. So key in my image is this dead tree on the ground here, and because the light is coming from the left, we're getting some nice side lighting on all the important parts of this dead tree. What I'm trying to do is start the image, have this tree with a nice bit of grass covering it, coming in from the bottom left. And we've got this wonderful curve coming up, and then I'm framing that impressive tree in this little curve here, sort of in the center of my frame but nearer the top. Then we've got another interesting dead tree on the ground as well, and the direction that's going sort of parallels with some of the slopes on this dead tree right in front of my camera here. Now I've got another interesting tree off to the right, but I don't want to include all of that in my shot. But what I have decided to do is include the top left of the tree. Because it's coming in at this angle, it sort of nicely rounds off my frame at the top right, and it complements the top of this tree here, the top of this curve just in front of me. So that's what I'm going for here, and it's an interesting shot. It's been quite challenging to find this composition and get it just set up, but it's one that I think works well due to the framing aspects of the composition and due to the lighting direction. And all of these fallen trees and branches on the forest floor work well together. Now, another thing that I'm considering when I take this shot is how the final crop will be. And looking at the scene to my eye, it works best in portrait orientation. In the native, there'll be a 2x3 crop. Now, those sort of images I find don't tend to display at their best on screens typically, which are in a landscape orientation, so on your monitors and televisions. But printed large in the native aspect ratio, I think it will look best. Cropping something off the top and bottom of the image, I think would actually spoil the composition. That's my thoughts out here on location at the moment anyway. So I'll let you see the image I've captured here, and I may have a look around this area and see if anything else is worth photographing. So working on another rather complicated composition here. It's definitely been a day of challenging compositions in the woodland, and this is going to be the last image that I'm capturing today. And I think when you're out doing woodland photography, often it can pay dividends to work around in a small area rather than trying to cover miles of woodland and get as many images as possible. If you see potential in an area, just hang around, explore it, and you may come away with a few images, one or two from that area that work really well for you. So that's what I've been trying to do here. And again, it's another challenging, complicated woodland scene. I've been fighting with a couple of things. One is the light. It's went very overcast, but it's just lifted ever so slightly. The sun is just trying to break through some clouds from this direction, so it's just casting some nice soft diffused light from the clouds onto the scene, so it's now looking quite good. And I'm actually just noticing at the moment that light has just lifted. Probably something very minor. I would say maybe, yeah, it's maybe lifted ever so slightly, about something like 1/3 of a stop, I would say. But there's definitely some nice light coming onto the scene at the moment, so I'm actually capturing this one as I talk to you, and this is the best the light's actually been since I've arrived here. So the final image that you see will be one that I'm capturing at this moment. So I'll try and explain what I've been fighting with here. As I say, the light's been very flat. It's just lifted enough now that the scene's looking its best since I've arrived here. The other thing I've been fighting with again is the slope of the land. It's sloped quite a lot from left to right, so again, if I took a landscape image, it would potentially look like I didn't have my camera level. And I'm favouring portrait orientation for that reason, but also because I think it makes this scene look its best. That light has actually just dropped again, so I'll go back over and explain what I'm trying to work on here. Very lucky that actually, just got a nice little bit of light. You may not have noticed it in the video, but there's just enough that I could see this scene come to life. So we'll have a look at the scene that I'm photographing, and I'll describe what I'm trying to achieve here. But there's been a few challenges. The light was very flat, as I talked about. We got that nice little brief lift, which just casted some nice light on certain parts of the scene, and that's just going to complete the image in my opinion. The other challenge is the slope of the ground going from left to right. So again, I've been really looking for a scene that works in portrait orientation, so it doesn't look that my camera hasn't been level if I took the shot in landscape orientation. So there's some dead trees in front of me here, lovely curves and shapes. And there's this curve that comes off to the right, and it sort of mirrors the tree just behind it and to the left. That tree doesn't look in the best of shape, so we've got a dead one, that tree there, and just through a gap in this dead tree there's another dead tree broken off not far from the ground level. So we've got quite a lot of dead trees going on here, and then off in the distance we've got that much larger tree, a big impressive strong tree. No foliage on it due to the time of year, but it's clearly thriving and strong, and it's got some moss on it. So I've got a little story going on in my mind here. I think it's always important when you're photographing a scene to have something in mind. What are you trying to photograph? Why were you drawn to the scene? What's the story that you're trying to show in your image to the final viewer? So I see that there's been a bit of a fight going on here, and I've got that large tree positioned at the back of my image. That's the end resting point for your eye, and I'm going to have it slightly soft just so it's sort of lurking and menacing there, but it's going to be enough in focus that you can make out what it is. And then all along from my foreground up to that tree is sort of the dead trees that this large tree off in the distance has slain. So the trail of destruction that it's left, if you like. And that's what I'm seeing in this scene here behind me, and that's what I've tried to represent in my final image. And that nice little lift of light that I got has just made the scene complete. So it's been a very challenging scene to get right, but hopefully you will like the final image. so that's me finish my photography for today. I really do hope you've enjoyed watching and maybe found it interesting and useful how I've been tackling these challenging woodland compositions today. But as always, I really do appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll hopefully see you in my next vlog.